It's in an unrestored condition right now. Now, Easton instituted its first Masonic Lodge in 1867. They met in a rented space, I'm not sure exactly where. But when this Memorial Hall was built in 1881, they built the third floor to be a Masonic Lodge. And they invited the Paul Dean Lodge that had been meeting since 1867 to use the third floor as their Masonic Lodge. So in 1881, they moved Paul Dean Lodge to these apartments. And then it served as a Masonic Lodge until 1960. 1960, there was no elevator. There were a lot of older members of the Masonic Lodge, so they moved to William Street. They bought the former Lutheran Church. And then in 2004, they actually merged with Paul Revere Lodge in Brockton. So that lodge is still technically in existence, but it now meets in Brockton. Some interesting things about that third floor. I'll pass these pictures around. These are pictures of the furnishings and what the lodge looked like. These pictures were taken in 1959, right before it closed. The furnishings of this lodge are very ornate. Now, Masonic temples typically have very ornate furnishings. This lodge particularly had extremely ornate furnishings. These furnishings were purchased by the Ames brothers in 1881 as they were building this Masonic Lodge. John Wilkes Booth's brother opened a theater in New York called the Booth Theater. And as you can imagine, after the assassination of President Lincoln, the Booth brothers were not particularly in good public favor. The building went bankrupt. The Ames brothers were able to purchase the mortgage to that building, and there were two Masonic lodges that met at the Booth Theater in New York, and they had this very, very nice furniture. The Ames brothers bought that furniture and brought it to this hall in 1881, and it stayed here until 1960, when actually passed until 2004, when they merged with Paul Revere Lodge in Brockton. This furniture is still in use and it's still in existence. It's actually in Bangor, Maine. It was donated in 2004 to a lodge in Bangor, Maine that suffered a fire. They rebuilt that lodge and the furniture moved up there. Another interesting thing about this furniture is the altar in the center of the room. This is where Masons take their secret Masonic obligations. Some of you may have heard of giving someone the third degree. What that comes from is there's 3 degrees in Masonry. You take your oath on a Bible, and the third degree is the highest degree in Masonry. When you take that oath, you make a lot of promises with your hand on a Bible. At Booth's Theater in New York, the Bible that they actually had on their altar was the actual Bible that George Washington took his Masonic oath on, and his presidential oath, and several presidents since, up until George H.W. Bush took his obligation on that Bible as well in 1989. So that the altar that was in this Masonic building also held George Washington's Bible. That's the history that I have out there. The lodge right now, the furnishings are in Bangor, Maine, so there are no Masonic furnishings up there. As you can see in the photos, the ceiling is painted. That painting is still on the ceiling up there. It's very ornate, it's unrestored. Hopefully it can be restored. One of the challenges that we face up there is keeping the climate consistent up there so that the room stays stabilized, so it doesn't degrade any further than it has. And hopefully we can raise the funds at some point to make that a functioning room again, whether it be in Masonic or public space or whatever. It's a beautiful space up there. I wish I could show it to you today, but is there any questions on Freemasonry?
Why is one of where's that Bible now?
The Bible never came here. The Bible, I follow the history. I would imagine it's in Smithsonian. I don't know for sure. But several presidents since have taken their oath on that, so it's no longer in Masonic possession, I'm sure.
Now, what we want to do is get your email addresses, because when the work is over and it's accessible, we want to get in touch with you and tell you what, if you're interested, and what the date of the tour will be. So the work here is scheduled to be over by June 30th. So we probably schedule something for the fall, just because it's easier for most people, you know, you're back in town. But definitely let us know. I think there's a clipboard downstairs where if you want to be invited to that tour, just let us know, and we'll send you notice, so you'll be sure not to miss it. So anyway, so thank you. I'm sorry, if anybody has questions, please ask ahead, because I know there's great interest in this room in Easton. And we're happy to have one of two Masons. Now we have two Masons on our board of trustees. So. But there are 108 steps from the street to the Masonic Lodge. And as the members got older and older, there was more complaining and more complaining. And they moved to that nice church on Jenny Lynn Street, which I think, I don't know what it is now. Maybe it is a church again, I don't know. But,
I think it's apartments.
I'm not sure what.
okay.
Condos.
Oh, yeah, all right.
It's apartments now.
That was a-
My father used to go there. He was the mason in that lodge.
Oh, all right. Yeah, and then I guess, you know, that lodge got old, and it was very nice to get the, you know, the stuff up to Bangor. And I'm glad you did the research on the furniture.
Not a problem. You know,
Yeah.
it's actually very interesting. It's one of the
Well, I'm
things.
glad you mentioned it. I mean, we knew about it, but I'm glad you.
Freemasonry is rich in history and tradition, so it's nice to see that furniture predated this hall. It was used in this hall for about 70 years. And
Came
it was-
from New York, came from
Yeah.
a Masonic Lodge in New York.
Yep, and then it was passed on and it's still in use today, so that's excellent.
Yeah, and Richardson, you know, the architect, he was a Mason as well, and there were lots of, we discussed this, and a lot of the major people at that time were Masons. So it's not unusual to have a Masonic Lodge, and I guess obviously it was important to Richardson to include a Masonic Lodge. In a building like this, which is sort of a gathering building, you know, we have the rooms downstairs, up here. It was built as a community center. There's somewhat of a controversy that it was supposed to be a town hall, but it wasn't accepted as a town hall. Not really, because at a town hall you have offices, you know, like we have now over on Elm Street, and these are all just big meeting rooms. So I think there's sort of a misunderstanding of what was meant by a town hall. So now we have the large room in here. I hope some of you will continue on the tour. So this is the room where you'll have your weddings, your concerts, your larger functions. The downstairs room is rented about 160 times a year. That room downstairs where the art exhibit is. And this is rented less, maybe 14, 15 times a year. But again, it's the larger functions. We recently, with the help of the Easton CPA funds, who have been very instrumental in helping preserving this building, very, very important to its restoration, is these stained windows have all been repaired and cleaned. And it makes a big difference. They were all different over the years. They had different repairs on different windows. None of them really seemed to match. So now we took about 2 years, and we got them all cleaned and repaired. And it's very, very nice to have the stained glass windows, especially in the early morning and the late afternoon when the sun is coming right through the glass. Those in engineering on this, that's all those gray panels you see between the windows. Those are acoustic panels. And we have very good acoustics here for performances. And I think we're having one, late this afternoon. There's going to be a Stony Hill concert. I think it might be downstairs, but I'm not sure. But this venue is very good for music. And there's something up here I'd like you to look at. And this is an old construction. There's a lot of the old pieces that are still left. And if you look up in here, there's this metal trough. And this conduit wasn't there. Does anybody have any idea of what the metal trough is for? All right. Well, it was for the footlights. It was for the limelight. You know, somebody loves to be in the limelight. You know, they like to be front stage, right up in the front. So this is for the lime. I guess they had little lantern boxes set in here and lit. And then they would have gas lights up above for the other light. Yeah. So that's nice. These old features are still kept. And we're also starting an effort to restore the stage, get new curtains, make it more adaptable to modern performances, music, theater, and we hope to have that completed within a year or two, because the hall is the performance and event center for the Easton Cultural District. which is a very good program started by the state for downtown development. And if you, as we approve it, we are an attraction to get people to North Easton Village. We are then given access to funding for various projects that are set aside for cultural districts. And Carolyn Cole, who's downstairs, she runs the district and was instrumental in getting it founded. So there's a good partnership we have with the district. And we're really happy to have that role, because this was the community center back in 1881 when there were less than 5,000 people in town. And there were classes here, vocational classes the shuttle company would put on, teaching stenography or other skills, job skills for the workers and their families. And there used to be the Saturday night dance. This was before World War II. And every Saturday night there'd be a dance. This was before really, television or anything like that. So it did serve as sort of an all-around community center. Right now we have something like 24,000 in the town, a lot bigger. So if we concentrate more on arts and culture, music and performances and promote that, that is really more appropriate given the size of the town now. We can't be all things, so we want to focus on that. And that's a good fit with the historic architecture and Richardson. So that is our plan, and we've almost finished doing the outside. That tower is the last piece of fixing up the outside. Then next we'll move in, and we have a major project to put in an elevator up there. It's going to be on the outside, which will come up, give access on all floors. We always hear this is a popular space, but people say, boy, I wish you had an elevator. We can get my grandfather up here or something like that. So we know there's good popular support for it. To put it in, to change egress, we have to change some doors, some other things, get new power service. So we're looking at about $3 million all told to put in the elevator. So we're going to start a campaign for that also. So there's a lot going on. We have a good board of trustees, very active, and it's a lot of. I've been here 40 years. Okay, I started when I was 28. This is no secret how old I am, but so it's gone through a lot, and we can look down on the second floor and you can see some of the remnants of the first repairs were done in the 60s. Sears Roebuck material and drop ceiling and fluorescent lighting and shag carpeting, and all the walls were painted white. But we're sort of undoing that. But I look at it as these are the guys that actually got the hall used again. So my hat's off to them. They did the materials they did. It worked. It kept the hall going. So we're just constantly trying to bring the hall back to its original state. We discovered that the mortar outside for the brick was black. We changed that over. The building looks much better when you see it driving down Main Street. And we discovered the correct paint color. This is with technology. You have these electronic microscopes that can really allow you to see what the original colors were. So that's a lot that we're involved in also. It's just restoring it to what it looked like in 1881. And on the other hand, putting in modern conveniences like elevator. We want to put in air conditioning too. The Masonic Hall, the idea for that, since it doesn't have a fire escape on it, would be for smaller groups, or maybe we could have archives up there, a research group, maybe half a dozen people at a time. But we know there's great interest in that also, as we see today. So there's a lot of good projects coming. Raising money for fine art is more difficult. There's a lot more money out there for bricks and mortar. We're pretty much finished with bricks and mortar after this summer. So we'll want to go after, like this painting over here is very interesting. This was, Ames was a partner with Edmund Booth, as you heard, down in New York City, the Booth Theater, and that was about 3,000 seat theater. And Edward Booth was kind of a Lawrence Olivier, Richard Burton of his time, all rolled into one. He was one of the first sort of international stars. And he was, unlike his brother, he was extremely popular, very well liked, and I think it must have been very hard for him to do that brother. So Oakes and Edmund Booth made a partnership. I don't know if there are other partners as well, but I think they were probably the major partners. Built this theater, and this was above the proscenium arch of the stage. You can see with us, I like to say, well, we have a sprinkler pipe above our proscenium arch. So you can see it was quite a large theater. And so Edmund Booth performed beneath this painting, And Sarah Bernhardt is a very famous French actress. This is under that painting she made her American stage debut. So it's got some good history to it. The original was painted in 1852 in the French Academy, which decided what was good art and what wasn't. Jean-Louis Armand was the painter, and this is a copy of it, reverse image and quite a bit larger. So you see, it was in the Booth Theater. Let's see, Oakes died in 1973, and this was being built in his memory by his children in 1879. So the Governor Oliver, went down and settled the estate. I think he continued to own the theater. I think he bought out some mortgages and owned it, but he saw, which was very coincidental in 1879, because that's when this building was under construction. So he bought it then, and it's 4 different canvases put together. And it really is the perfect size for this room, isn't it? And so he brought it up, and he died, I don't know when, well, the Governor lived in the 1890s, but anyway, so he was the one really that did a lot of the financials of this. He paid for the high school across the street, so he was, hence it's Oliver Ames High School, but the golden rule, right? But he was very involved civically, and very important for this memorial to his father. And on September 28th at Stonehill, we're going to have a symposium on Oakes and his place in history, talk about his childhood in Easton, his interest in the shovel company, the Union Pacific Railroad, and the Great Mobilier. And we're very pleased to have a speaker there, historian who's won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. So we're really trying to do a first-rate job of it, and we hope to get word out about it. And that's going to be September 28th. So Oakes has really sort of been tarnished by history, and we're trying to put it more in perspective. And so that's another job we have here is to let people know just what an incredible man Oakes was. Now, this painting is, I don't know if anybody looked at it closely, but it's called The Human Comedy. And these are historic figures up in the Elysian Fields, and you're looking at this sort of play of life in the center. And it's obviously, this painting's very dirty. And to clean it, it would have to be on site, because we spoke to people about this, we got estimates, it's upwards of $50,000 to clean it and redo it. It is very chipped, a lot of paint is dried out, and most of the chips are sort of like a saucer shape. So the first thing you have to do is you have to get sort of steam, you have to steam it and get it moist and flatten down all the paint so they're not chips. So if you went over and tried to clean it, you just chip, all that. And then clean it and repaint it and put it back. It'd probably take a month or so. But I think it would be a great project because obviously that painting would really come forward. So I'll go left to right on the historical figures. On the extreme left with a cane, with a walking stick in his hand, is Homer. And next in the purple row is Dante. And I think behind Dante is Beatrice, the woman just behind him. And on the bench, to the extreme right, the gentleman sitting on the bench, that is Socrates. And above Socrates with the red sash is Alexander the Great. Behind Alexander the Great is Mars. And behind Mars is Medusa. You can see the snakes hanging out of her head. And behind Medusa is the armies of war. Now to the right, the man holding up the lantern is Diogenes, looking for an honest man. And the lower right is really hard to tell, but that's a barrel with some straw in it. And Diogenes lived in a barrel, so we know without a doubt that was Diogenes. And there's an interesting story about Alexander the Great and Diogenes. Alexander the Great, who ruled basically all the known world at that time, went to visit the wise man Diogenes. And he said to Diogenes, well, what can I do for you? And Diogenes replied, well, you can stand out of my light. So I always thought that was interesting. I don't know if that was an allusion to that or not. And to the extreme right, there are some muses. The first one, whose head is touching the frame, he has I don't know what it is. It's like a dulcimer or something that he's playing. And the figure in the middle is holding up a mask, like a theatrical mask. And the figure to the left of the three, the leftmost, we really don't know. It's sort of all dark. I don't know if it was just unfinished or what, but, oh, yes, in the center, excuse me, the reason all these guys are here, that's the play of life right there. And the figure on the right side of the sphere, that's Athena as the goddess of reason. And the figure being hung is Cupid, or Eros, you know, and then the figure of the time. So the motto here is it had to have, in those days you had to have a lesson, a good moral lesson for your heart. It's called, in order to lead the good life, when a person is young, they must tame their sexual desires, you know, Cupid, Eros. And when they are older, they must overcome their love of power or excess. So in that, as the wise man of the Elysian Fields will attest, is the secret to a good life. That's how you have a good life. So anyway, we always thought Winthrop, who was a theater producer and a grandson of Oakes, we thought he brought it up here, but no, it actually is even better. It's more tied directly to Oakes himself. Now there is, I won't go into it, but Ed Hans has a very good piece writing on who we think the artist was for this piece of stage art, and it's probably one of the oldest, well, without a doubt, it's probably one of the oldest pieces of stage art in existence in this country. And so we do have some idea who painted it, but not exactly, but Ed has done a very good piece on it, and I think maybe if you go to our website, oaksameshall.org, we might have a link to it there. So we're very appreciative to Ed, who's done a lot of historic research for us, and it's a very interesting building. So, but if any of you have any questions, I really like questions. I say to people, I always learn something from these questions because everybody, you know, knows something I don't know. So, so please, if you have any questions, ask away. Often part of that trick they have where if you have a friend and okay, listen, I want you to ask me this question to get things going. Okay, so you're the first to ask the question. I haven't done that, got that prepared. But now that's, you know, if there's any interest or if there are any questions for Doug on the Masons too, please feel free to ask. Or if you want to ask as we're walking along down to the first floor,
I
that's
just have one quick question.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of like potential fundraisers, you know, going on here for the elevator, for restoring the picture, just the rest of the building.
Yeah.
Is this all coming out of the cultural council or?
a lot of it is private money. We've had very
I'm sorry, it's already like organized through that cultural council? No.
We haven't yet applied to any money from the Cultural Council, but that will be in the works, especially with the stage development, which goes directly, you know, to there. We actually will apply to Mass Cultural Council hopefully for funds for the elevator, and that would be a substantial, we hope, six-figure gift. We would go to the Easton Community Preservation Act to get money from them, and then we'd also go out and raise private funds. Like a lot of this money here for the glass windows was done by Amelia Peabody Foundation, which is a private foundation. The tower has funding also from the CPA, from Mass Historical Commission, which has given the hall money since the 1980s, on and on. They've been a good supporter. And the Felicia Fund, which is down in Providence, which is a private foundation as well. And then we have individual donors over the years who have been generous to us. So it's a real mix, and I think at this point it's about 50-50 between private and public monies that have been spent to keep the hall improving, as I said. Yeah. So but again, it's really trying to patch together all these different funding. Because some of them are matching funds, and you get funds that aren't matching. You meet the matches on that, and it's quite a lot of work, but it's extremely rewarding when you see how good it begins to look, and you know, people coming and appreciating it. So, you have a question?
No. Having carried stuff up the backstage to put it up here, I think I can appreciate the elevator.
Oh, okay, Eric. Yeah, thank God, knock on wood, nobody's falling down those stairs. I mean, I think they're so frightening when you get down there and you just hang on. You know, because all the treads, all the steel treads, you know, it's parallel. You really can't tell where one step ends and the next one begins. down below, so.
You've had some good dances.
You ever got before, John?
It came close, I think, at least more.
Yeah, the floor, if you have a really good sun, the floor starts to go up and down a little bit.
It helps.
It does.
As you get older, these.
Yeah. What do you remember back when you were young here? Was it too much, or was that?
I don't know, I went back a couple of years.
Well, that's there are some details now, but the town can rent the hall for free. I mean, this hall is owned by the trustees. We're responsible for it. We manage the people that work here, and but it's for the benefit of the town. And so any town meeting, anything of that nature, or if they have like a high school team, sports team or something wants to do something, there's free use of the hall. If there's choruses or any sort of theater, free use of that. And we're trying to promote that with Stonehill. We're working on getting a relationship with their theater and music programs that come over here. They're very interested in this hall, the one downstairs. One, because we're 10 minutes away, and the other is these are very good acoustics. They like it. It has a little bounce to it, and as opposed to some other spaces where the sound goes out, it doesn't come back. They can't really hear. So